everybody, welcome to a nonfiction story time. I thought I would read a book all about the beginnings of Pride. It's called Stonewall, A Building, an Uprising, a Revolution, written by Rob Sanders and illustrated by Jamie Kristoff. This is a really cool book because the main character, the person that's telling the story, who's called a narrator, the narrator is Stonewall. The narrator is the building. It's pretty cool. So let's hear what the building has to say. Two stable houses side by side. For more than 100 years, we witnessed history. Then came a night when we became a part of history. We were built in the 1840s to board the horses of the affluent in New York City's Greenwich Village. The affluent means the rich people. Inside our brick walls, horses whinnied and hammers clanged. Outside, passerby bustled as carriages rumbled on the cobblestone streets. As time passed, the wealthy residents began to move uptown, taking with them their art clubs, their libraries, their fine hotels, and their theaters. Our neighborhood became a mecca for immigrants arriving from all over the world. A mecca, which some of you might know, is just a place that a lot of people go to. Visitors made their way to Greenwich Village. Many of them stayed. Greenwich Village was changing. We changed too. The smell of freshly baked bread began to waft out of our windows and into the neighborhood. The roar of automobiles replaced the rumble of carriages as artists and writers moved in. Contemporary art galleries, experimental theaters, and small restaurants sprang up around us. The village was becoming the creative center of New York City. By 1930, our two buildings were joined together and we became Bonnie's Stonewall Restaurant. Celebrities, artisans, tourists, and local residents lunched at our tables, shoulder to shoulder. So there's Stonewall. That's the main character. That's who's speaking. Stonewall. Greenwich Village was a place where you could be yourself and where being different was welcomed and accepted. Newness thumped in the heart of Greenwich Village in the 1950s, vibrating our windows. Musicians played on the streets, jazz filled the air. Poets performed in restaurants, artists painted in their studios, the beat movement arrived, and we witnessed it all. Leading up to the 1960s, our neighborhood welcomed gays and lesbians, men who loved men and women who loved women. We were a home for people who were told that they didn't fit in or belong. We had welcomed all kinds of people before, so we knew what to do. In 1967, we swung open our doors and became the Stonewall Inn. Gay men and women from throughout the city and the country came to meet old and new friends, free to be themselves inside our walls. Women and men, young and old, teenagers, transgender people, drag queens, veterans, business people, students, people of different colors, religions, and cultures gathered, chatted, laughed, and danced under our roof. Others were not as accepting. They thought those who gathered within our walls were too different. We heard the whispered voices of those inside. Loving someone like yourself was illegal. Socializing together could get you arrested. Wearing the wrong clothes could land you in jail. Being gay could get you fired or kicked out of your home. Some nights we heard fist pounding on our doors, felt angry footsteps stomping across our floor, and saw flashes of glaring lights as the police arrested some of those inside. After each raid, those who hadn't been arrested left quietly, angrily, disappearing into the darkness. We stood tall and kept opening our doors. People kept coming. So Stonewall stood their ground. But the police raids kept coming too. We couldn't stop them. In the steaming early morning hours of June 28, 1969, under a nearly full moon, another raid began. "Police," a voice shouted. "We're taking the place." Officers stormed through the doors, lining up the people inside, demanding IDs, detaining some, and arresting others. This time, those not arrested didn't disappear into the night. Instead, they stood defiantly in the street on the sidewalk under our rusty sign. This time, they weren't quiet. As the ones arrested were led to police cars and patrol wagons, the anger of the growing crowd was lit. "Why don't you do something?" yelled one woman as she was forced into a police car. Immediately, the spark of anger grew into a smoldering resistance. Shouts and screams echoed off bricks. Fists thrust in the air. We saw the faces of the crowd and felt their rage. The Stonewall Uprising had begun. The police, shocked by the defiance of the crowd, rushed back in and barricaded themselves inside. Our friends stood outside trying to force open our doors. Our windows were shattered, smoke drifted through our rooms. We stood firm. Years of silent anger inflamed the crowd. The police called for help and soon it arrived. The fires were extinguished, the police came back outside, but the crowd's anger was not extinguished. "Gay power," the protesters shouted. "We want freedom." The police had never seen anything like it before. Neither had we. And it wasn't over. The Stonewall Uprising continued on and off for several days and nights. A new day was dawning for the gay rights movement, now known as the LGBTQ+ rights movement. The change had begun here, inside our walls, at the Stonewall Inn. On June 28, 1970, our windows looked out on men and women gathering to celebrate the first anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising. At first, hundreds marched, then thousands of women and men, young and old, teenagers, transgender people, drag queens, veterans, business people, students, people of different colors, religions, and cultures, and their friends and families joined to parade through the streets of New York City. "Say it clear, say it loud. Gay is good, gay is proud," they chanted. Many things are different now. Some things have changed. Even some laws have changed. Now 2 men who love each other or 2 women who love each other can marry. We know. We've seen their happy faces snapping photos outside our door. We've heard their footsteps walking side by side along our floors. We've felt their love. Each year in June, people all over the world celebrate the movement for LGBTQ+ rights, a movement that has come so far. A movement that still has further to go. They celebrate inside and outside our walls. They celebrate freedom. They celebrate equality. It all began one night here at the Stonewall Inn when 2 old horse stables became a part of history. And there's the real Stonewall Inn. And here are some pictures of what happened that night. And at the end of this book, there's an interview with someone who was a Stonewall Uprising participant and an LGBTQ+ activist, but I'm not gonna read it. So if you wanna check this book out and request it for curbside and read it yourself, go for it. But that's the end of this book, which was called Stonewall, A Building, an Uprising, a Revolution. And that's a short history of why we celebrate Pride every June. Now this book is great, but it's a little general. And that means that some of the details, it's not very detailed actually, that's a good way to put it. It leaves out a lot. So I just wanted to quickly read a biography that's in this amazing book called Queer Heroes, Meet 53 LGBTQ Heroes from Past and Present, written by Arabelle Siccardi and illustrated by Sarah Tennant Jones. And I'm gonna read about 2 people who were at Stonewall that night, who have been credited as starting the uprising. And I'm gonna say a word while reading this that I'm uncomfortable saying. I'm just gonna put it out there. It's a word that was used for transgender people when these 2 women were fighting for transgender rights. So I just wanted to put it out there, and I'll tell you what that word is when we come across it in this biography. But the two women I'm going to discuss are Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, and there they are. So I'm going to read their biography that's in this book. Marsha P. Johnson, a self-identified drag queen, moved to New York City in the early 1960s, where she met her longtime friend, Sylvia Rivera, who also referred to herself as a drag queen and as transgender. Both Marsha and Sylvia experienced difficult childhoods, not being accepted for who they truly were and never quite fitting in with those around them. It was not an easy time for the LGBTQ+ community during Marsha and Sylvia's lives. In the 1960s, same-sex dancing in public was banned, bars were prohibited from serving gay people alcohol, and people could be arrested if they were caught wearing fewer than 3 pieces of clothing that matched the gender they were assigned at birth. There were not many places that the gay community could go to dance and express themselves, but the Stonewall Inn, this Stonewall Inn, was one such place. What's more, it welcomed drag queens, who were often excluded from other gay bars by cisgender gay people. Cisgender means you identify with the gender you were assigned at birth. But even in the Stonewall Inn, the patrons were regularly harassed and abused by the police. On June 28, 1969, when Marsha and friends were out celebrating her birthday, the police raided the Stonewall Inn under the pretense of catching the bar selling alcohol without a license. A number of people were arrested, dragged out of the bar, and forced into police cars. However, the LGBTQ+ community had had enough of police harassment and being treated like second-class citizens, and within minutes, a riot had broken out. Marsha and Sylvia were both involved in the riots that night, resisting arrest and encouraging the ever-growing crowd to stand up for their rights. Their bravery that night helped lead the gay liberation movement, and 1 year later, the first gay pride parades were held, which we saw in Stonewall. That same year, Marsha and Sylvia founded STAR, which stands for the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries. Transvestite is the word that I feel uncomfortable saying. It's an old-fashioned word that we do not use anymore. A group that is dedicated to helping homeless young transgender people. Even within the gay rights movement, the pair faced discrimination by white cisgender activists. In 1973, Sylvia was due to speak at a rally when a white lesbian assaulted her and accused her of mocking womanhood. In response, Sylvia reminded the attendees what they owed to her and what other non-gender conforming people of color who fought at Stonewall and continue to fight for gay rights. Their bravery and determination helped shatter barriers for future members of the LGBTQ+ community, and they will always be remembered as fearless and courageous for their part in shaping LGBTQ+ history. So that was Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, and they helped start the gay liberation movement, which is now called the LGBTQ+ rights movement. All right, and so these are them, and I wanted to include them because this book doesn't really mention them, but they're in this book, and you can also request this for curbside pickup. So that was our nonfiction story time. I also wanted to mention that in this book, Stonewall, they mention men and women as a group of people, but I also want to include non-binary people. If you don't identify in the gender binary of man or woman, you're also included in this book, even if the text doesn't say it. So thank you very much for attending this story time. If you have any questions or you want to learn more, the internet is a great resource, or you can request more books, or just email us, call us, or come into the library when you can, when it's safe, and just ask for more books, and we'll always provide you with more. All right, thank you for listening. Happy Pride!